Hola, hola, and buena dia to everybody. This is Jeff Lifson calling you on the Zoom call from the States, not from Argentina. I know some people had hoped maybe I was going to do something really exotic today, but this is an opportunity to be relatively quick, informative, maybe give some insight as I'm about ready to share my screen. Um, into a recent trip that Stephanie and I took to Buenos Aires and to the racing there this past weekend. I guess would have been the 13th of December, which is the day when they run the Gran Premio Carlos Pellegrini, which is essentially their Breeders' Cup Day in South America. So it encompasses not only horses from Argentina, there are about 8,000 foals born a year, but it's also horses from Brazil, horses from Chile, a few horses from some of the other South American countries, but those are the majority of the players on this Breeders' Cup Day that they call the Gran Premio Carlos Pellegrini Day. There's approximately 14, 16 races that day, and it encompasses a number of races that we think about when we do the Breeders' Cup here in the United States, including we've got the mile, the turf mile. It's all everything's on turf, by the way. And you've also got the filly and mare turf, and a couple of other races, the sprint. Those are all the turf sprint. Those are all races that are Group One races, Grade One races that take place on this day, the Carlos Pellegrini Day, which is, as I said, kind of the biggest deal in South America, run every year, usually the second Saturday of December. So let's move quickly to the winner of the Pellegrini this year. Interestingly enough, a Brazilian horse, a son of an obscure American sire named Cordier, or American bred, who has become a sire in South America. And he is the winner of the 2025 Gran Premio Carlos Pellegrini International. And that is a win and you're in race for the Breeders' Cup turf. So that horse qualified for, he was the very first qualifier for next fall at Keeneland. He'll be in the turf mile, or excuse me, in the turf longer distance race, the turf, the John Deere turf, should they choose to bring him to the States for that. And there's certainly a precedent for these South American horses to come north. If you go way back, you've got Bayacoa and Paciana, some of those great champions that came that Ron McAnally trained. But recently, Full Serrano, that our own John Sadler trained, was a horse that was purchased from an outfit down in South America, brought north, and won the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. So there's a real precedent for this. And I see that Milton Harsh is on. I believe that our good friend Herb Garbarini is on. And this is recorded for the rest of you, so you'll be able to check in. So there he is, Obtaye, the Brazilian horse who won the 2025 Gran Premio Carlos Pellegrini. That same day, Frankie Dettori won one of the earlier undercard races, and this was really a swan song last Saturday for Frankie Dettori. I'm not sure if this is absolute, but this was supposed to be his last real racing day of his career. And so they paid tribute to him. The rider of the winner, Obtaye, is right next to him. That's Yao Morea, who rides an awful lot in Hong Kong and in Dubai. He's one of the great jockeys of the world. And the two of them celebrated together after the big race that took place at approximately 7:45 local time. They run a lot of races that day. And it's a terrific, terrific venue and outing. This is San Isidro, which was patterned after the original Longchamp. Longchamp in Paris is now different. It was renovated several years ago, but this was very much what it looked like before that happened. And San Isidro, which is one of three main race courses in Argentina, is home to this Pellegrini Day, this Breeders' Cup Day. I would say approximately maybe 10 to 20,000 were on hand that day. It was a good crowd. It was a delightful, wonderful day in terms of temperatures. Maybe a little bit too warm. It was 90, but we loved it because we were coming from frigid Kentucky at that point. So this is San Isidro. You're seeing a number of the grandstands. They have some wonderful spots for some of the higher end clients and customers and owners. That is where we got to stay. We were hosted by a bloodstock agent that is headquartered in California and was integral in getting full Serrano to John Sadler several years ago. His name is Luis Bosa, and that was our table right behind him up in the Jockey Club on the fourth floor of one of these beautiful tribuna buildings. So you can see they've got the big jumbotron. You see the racetrack in the back there, and our host Luis Bosa, and that was our spot for the day. Should we do something like this with all of our partners one of these years in the future, I think this is where we'd want to set up. It's a beautiful spot, easy to the betting windows, a beautiful lunch served, including some amazing Argentine beef. It was a great day and a great venue. At that table, we had Luis Bosa and Becky Maker, who does an awful lot of our layup work here in Kentucky. She made the trip. And we were shared it with Kenny McPeak, the winner of the Kentucky Derby with Mystic Dan, and of course, Torpedo Anna, the Oaks, the horse of the year. And Kenny is a regular down in Argentina, had been a regular in Brazil as well, too, to scout out horses and to be a part of the festivities. That's how strong the racing is down there and how important he thinks it is as a potential place to gather more horses for his barn. So that's the Jockey Club, and that was the table that we shared with Luis Bosa and with Kenny McPeak. In the days leading up to it, we had some wonderful places to watch horses train, including the San Isidro Training Center. You can see they train on the dirt. There is a turf course there as well. The gentleman on the far right is a gentleman by the name of Nico Martin, one of the up-and-comers. We'll call him the Chad Brown or the Brad Cox of South American trainers. He won several Group 1 races on Pellegrini Day. He's only 38 years old. He's the guy in the maroon sweatshirt, and we got to know him rather well. He's going to be a great contact should we continue to cultivate these relationships down in Argentina. But this is the training center that all of the horses have to ship over to. It's about 10 minutes from the track on the race day there at San Isidro, but it's where they train year round. And there's approximately, I think, several thousand to 3,000 horses that are located there, and they train all day long. So the San Isidro Training Center. That same day, which was the Friday before the weekend, and hold on one second. I'm going to let my dogs out so they don't just sit at the door here, but that same day, we visited a lot of the barn area there at San Isidro, and this is one of the what they would call stables, studs, yards. This is Diego Pena, the gentleman that I'm standing with. And Diego Pena was a trainer that won a Group 1, a Grade 1 on Breeders' Cup Day, or the San Isidro version of it, the Pellegrini Day. He won what's known as the Copa de Plata, which is really the filly and mare turf, mile and an eighth. In this case, it's a mile and a quarter, but very much the equivalent to what we have here in the States. And he also sold John Sadler, the Breeders' Cup Dirt winner from several years ago, Full Serrano. So he's another great contact that we made. In the background, that's Becky Maker, and she is putting her hand on Knows All, the horse that won the Copa de Plata, the horse that won that version of the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Turf, that mile and a quarter Group 1 race, Knows All. So you can see that these studs are immaculate. They're beautifully put together. The brick there and the horses are extremely well taken care of there at the San Isidro Training Center. The day prior to that, we spent most of the day visiting two pretty amazing stud farms. They're, I'd say, approximately about an hour from Buenos Aires, but still in the Buenos Aires region. The first one we went to, and this is what you're seeing here, is the filly yearling barn at Aras Abolengo. They produce approximately 170 foals a year, which is one of the bigger operations. This is a farm that's famous for having produced Candy Ride a number of years ago. Of course, the stallion who is at Lane's End and produced Gun Runner, one of the great stallions in North America, was bred by Aras Abolengo, by the gentleman who runs the place, Julio Mentedegui, and his son Marcos. 4 generations at Aras Obolengo doing what they do. And we visited and looked at a number of yearlings outside the Philly yearling barn. We also went to see several of their stallions at Aras Obolengo. This is the number one stallion in Argentina. His name is Cosmic Trigger, and he is a half brother to Candy Ride. He is, impeccably bred, beautifully bred from the same mare line as Candy Ride, so that makes him a half brother, and he is the leading stallion in South America and in Argentina in particular. They do have some shuttle stallions that they'll send north. Not many. Most of them go to Florida. And they have some that come down. Cosmic Trigger is one of their main stallions that just stays there over the winter time. He had just finished his breeding season because their breeding season goes from approximately July to November. They're 6 months different from the way we work here in the United States. And that has an impact, I believe, on a number of ways that you think about bringing horses from there to race up here. You have to time it out correctly, and that's something that we learned an awful lot about. Here's the other stallion that we visited at Abolenga. This is the stallion Daddy Longlegs, another stallion that's known to North American breeders because he is by Justify. I'm sorry, he's by Scat Daddy. And Daddy Longlegs is one of the relatively new up and coming stallions in the Argentine breeding industry. Here we are looking at the yearling colts. They sell all of their horses, both their fillies and their colts, so they may stay in as part owners for some of those horses. And you can see there's a number of us that are looking over these yearlings that will sell anytime from, say, March. Their yearling sales are March, April, May, as opposed to our yearling sales, which are typically August, September, and October. You can see the difference there. But we're reviewing some of the yearling colts that were presented to us. And there we are reviewing some of the yearling fillies. That particular filly was one of my favorite. Her name is Serendita. She is by Daddy Longlegs, and she's one that I'm going to stay fairly close to. They're going to sell her on March the 31st as a yearling. Again, thinking about the timing and also thinking about really the bargains that you can get for top flight physicals and pedigrees down there, we may think about that particular filly because she really struck all of us as being their best filly on that farm. And then we went over and did something very special. We saw a number of foals, just several months old, with all of their mares out in the field. You could not, dream of doing this over at Ashford Stud, Coolmore, Lane's End, any one of these farms that are famous in here in Kentucky. You couldn't go out there and just hang with the mares and the foals. We did. What an amazing experience it was. We have some videotape of it. I didn't want to play it here because it might be herky jerky, but I will share that with all of our partners a little later on this week or maybe next week. But we got a chance to see these are all the foals by the new stallion Verifying, who's by Justify. Remember Brad Cox trained that horse and he was in the Kentucky Derby several years ago. He's now a new stallion there at Abolenga. And there is one of the foals, Seve, who is by the stallion Pneumatic, who is by Verifying, that we're going to keep our eye on. He was clearly the best foal that we saw of that group. Again, we're going to keep our eyes on these horses and then figure out if there's anything we can do to take a look at them. And for whatever reason, I'm going to try to see if I can get the additional amount of slides here because there were a couple more slides that I want to show you. We may not be able to. No, that's it. Um, we visited several other farms, one of which was maintained by a gentleman by the name of Ferdinand. Excuse me, his name is Fernando Fantini. He was the breeder of Blue Stripe, who was second in the Breeders' Cup distaff to Todd Pletcher's filly at Keeneland. And got beat by this much. He gave us some great insight into the ability to bring horses up to the United States from from South America, from Argentina in particular. Those are horses that he gave us insight to because he actually was nearly winning a Breeders' Cup race with one of the horses he had in Argentina. So Fernando Fantini was a fabulous resource for us, and somebody that I'm going to rely on, another great contact that was made. So that's really all I wanted to share with you was just a couple of the experiences that we had. I'm open to any questions, and I realize we only have Milton and Herb on the call right now, but if you all have questions, be delighted to field them, and then just know we're going to send you on your way after this.
Jeff, I've got a question. First, a comment. Thank you for this. It's pretty fascinating. I bet it was an amazing trip. So we appreciate you sharing it.
I'd really like Milton maybe to do this with partners because we really have a game plan where to stay, some farms to visit, how to get the tickets, how to get around. Might be something, because it's always going to be in early December. I think it's after the Iron Bowl, Milton, so you might be able to, to go. And
Well, you can sign us up.
yeah, it's a great trip and it's summertime. So for those of us that are, northern part of the country and freezing our tails off, it's a great trip. But go ahead with your question.
I also thought you might come home with a filly or something. So
Well, we're being really careful about this, but most of the yearlings that you buy, top yearlings are going to be anywhere from 35, 45,000 to, at max 100,000. So there's a lot of value if you have the right people to associate you with.
well, that would be fun. So speaking of dollars, I'm curious, how does on a big day like the Pellegrini group of races, how do their purses compare, to our top events?
Not even close, Milton.
Yeah, I
Purse
assume.
structure down there is peanuts, which is one reason why a lot of these horses of racing age they're for sale because the Saudis, folks from Dubai, the Japanese, for example, the filly that Diego Pena trains, I think she was going to go to Japan for 900,000. After she won that race. Because, yeah, it's $60,000 purses for some of these group ones, maybe $100,000 for the Pellegrini, maybe a little bit more, but not much. So it doesn't compare, not when you're talking about the Breeders' Cup Classic or the Breeders' Cup Turf, et cetera.
Sure. Okay, well, thanks again. I'm gonna run.
Thanks so much, Milton. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Herb, did you have a question before we wrap things up?
Yeah. Actually, can you hear me, Jeff?
I can.
Oh, okay, good, because I had a lot of issues as I usually have with technology.
You did great.
Um, uh, Jeff, just walk me through. I know their fall dates are very different. So when do they effectively become a yearling, a 2 year old? Is it the same
July
as
1st. So for us, it's January 1st, Herb. For them, it's July 1st.
okay? And then when they come to the United States, is it still that July 1st kind
It
of?
is. So
Oh,
they
okay.
are, whatever their age is whatever their age is. So,
Right,
for example, their 2 year olds are just beginning to start right now. And you really don't want a 2 year old that starts, in November and December. You want a 2 year
right,
old that's starting to begin racing in January and February. We have our eye on one of those as well, too. And
okay,
what you need to keep in mind is that you're 6 months behind the American 2 year olds. So when you bring them up, you have to bring them up as an older horse so that they're, catching up from a
right.
development perspective.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Good to know.
Thank you, Herb, and Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to you and
Likewise.
to the rest of the folks that are going to be listening to this when we send everything out. We hope you enjoy it. Email me with questions. Be delighted to follow up with specifics. But in the meantime, adios, buena fortuna, which is probably not Spanish, but it's close enough. Have a great weekend, everybody. Take care.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thanks, everybody.